Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Studio 51 here at EMS Update 2025. My name is Chris Dell. I'm happy to be your host for this particular session, and my guest is Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt is the Chief of South Shaler-Hampton EMS. Eric serves on the Board of Directors for EMS West. Eric is also the Chairman for the Allegheny County EMS Chiefs Association, and also serving as a candidate for the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania Board of Directors. So I remember getting the email, and certainly happy for you. I wish you the best with that. Another important thing that Eric works with is the Citizens Concerned for EMS. And that's a pretty important group that's doing a lot of good work. I honestly think, Eric, looking at some of the numbers that you presented even today in your earlier presentation, that what's happening there through that group,
right,
it's having an effect. You know, I believe that communities are beginning to recognize EMS a bit more. But obviously, you were here.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. It looks that way. Here today to discuss, however, the statewide EMS fee schedule. Can you talk to us about that a bit?
Sure. So it's an initiative of the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania, and they have done some amazing work. Heather Harris, their executive director, has been there for a long time. She's been a stalwart for EMS. The most recent success of the AAP was the Medicaid fee schedule increase in 2024, which is super significant. Even for us, we're a relatively low volume Medicaid service, and still made about $140,000 positive bottom line impact to us.
Absolutely.
So in this, the current legislative initiative and this statewide fee schedule, which is the goal for the next couple of years, will be a game changer. It's just another piece of the puzzle to try to stabilize EMS and get it to make it the career path we all want it to be.
Absolutely, I definitely recognize everything you're saying there as being extremely accurate. When I talk to some agencies, that Medicaid impact is over $1 million per year.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's the difference between continuing to exist or not exist.
Yep.
You know, because the pay rates prior were so low. Obviously, there's a lot of other battles that get fought, beyond the Medicaid situation, and now with the statewide fee schedule. You mentioned a couple key components that will be achieved by, during your presentation earlier, you mentioned a couple key components that can be achieved through such a statewide EMS fee schedule. Can you elaborate?
So one of them certainly is improving the financial picture for EMS, but the one that really is impactful to me, right now people don't understand that Medicare pays for ambulance service, except it really doesn't. The average out-of-pocket cost for senior citizens today, if they call an ambulance, is $275, which pays for more than half of what we receive for an ambulance trip with Medicare.
Right.
So this will be a Patient Protection Act also, not just for Medicare, but for everybody. Would cap out-of-pocket expense at $100. So, actually, I misspoke about that. I'm sorry. So let me correct that. For the folks that are on private insurance, which is what this targets, it will protect them. We hope to get to a point with Medicare reform that's coming through initiatives there, they'd also have the same protection.
Sure.
So it really is a big deal for our seniors.
No, it most certainly is.
Yep.
And the other component you talked about was the situation that many ambulance services face. Are you participating? Are you non-participating in certain insurances? And the problem with that being, when you're participating, you're taking a lower fee, a lower payment, if you will, from the payer, as opposed to when you become non-participating. Yeah, there's more money involved, but the money oftentimes is going to the patient themselves, right?
And sometimes, your circumstance, you don't have a choice. You have so many senior facilities, you have to be participating. We're fortunate we don't have that issue to address. Not that we don't have other ones. But, they're calling for, first of all, this has been done in, I believe it's 11 or 12 other states.
I believe you're right.
And it's very significant, where they're mandated, or their insurers are mandated to pay anywhere between 325 to 400% of Medicare.
Sure.
We have to get to a place with EMS where we can attract and retain talent because we paid them what they're worth.
Absolutely.
They work one job. They work 40 hours a week. They're not working two places and all kinds of overtime to make ends meet and support their family.
Absolutely.
The work we do as EMS providers is super important, and the people that do the job deserve to be compensated fairly for it.
I agree. And I definitely think between organizations like the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania, individuals like yourself, organizations such as the CC4 EMS, and so many others, there's a lot going on. I think that as EMS agencies, we're more active now, we're more vocal now than we've ever been, and we need to keep doing that. And I guess, quite frankly, that's probably the number one message that I hope to spread this evening with you here. What can these agencies do And you talked a bit about it earlier, and you talk about some of the key things that agencies can be doing. Can you elaborate?
Right. So the first is that you have to be advocates for what we do. And when I say that, I don't only mean you, Chief of McCandless Franklin Park, me with Shader-Hampton EMS. I mean every single provider that's an EMS provider has to understand the plight we face, use the relationships they have with their local municipal elected officials, their state representatives and senators, their congressmen and senators at the federal level. Every one of those impacts a piece of the pie that EMS collects. I don't know if I want to go in business with you, Chris. We're going to start a business where 88% of the time the work we do, we get paid less than what it costs to do it. You want to go in? Because that's what we do every day in the ambulance service.
And someone tells you how much you're going to get paid.
That's right. You don't have any choice. Federal payers, Medicare and Medicaid, they tell you what they're going to pay,
sure.
and you accept it. That's it. So you have to have other revenue streams. We have to diversify. We have to make it so it's a state issue, a federal issue, municipal issue, and the work we do to make it all whole pie and make sure we're there tomorrow to do the valuable work we do.
And to elaborate on that, one of the, again, going back to your conversation from earlier, 125 or so ambulance services in the late 1980s in Allegheny County, and now we're down to 33.
32.
It really,
32.
The number changed in the last 24 hours. It wouldn't surprise me. But I think it speaks of what goes on financially.
Right.
Because let's face it, a lot of these agencies probably didn't go away because they wanted to go away. It was an impossible task to stay in business from a financial perspective, right? So that's a pretty big deal. And you talk about the number of EMS providers that leave the business. But there's a reason for that. It's partially because of pay rates. I think one of the key words that I walked away with from today was, obviously I did a really good job remembering it, but was transparency. Right?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
I can. So I have a very, very strong belief that every nickel we get as an EMS agency comes from somebody else. It's somebody else's money, right? It comes from the federal government, which comes through taxes. It comes through Medicaid. It comes through taxes. It comes through insurance that other companies pay for. It comes through donations or subscriptions from our communities. So we have to be completely accountable. We should be able to explain to anybody at any time why we need support, how much support we need, and what we're trying to get to, which is having this to be a very viable career path. EMS today, look, we have total respect for our brothers and sisters in the fire service and in the police agencies. We all have our own issues. But the reality is EMS impacts lives more positively every day than the other folks do. That doesn't mean that firefighters don't do heroic things all the time. Police officers, the same thing. But day to day, on the most routine calls, our two-person crew going in and helping people has a bigger impact on life and survival.
Amen. Absolutely, completely agree. So let's talk about Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania just a little bit more. Member organization,
right?
But one of the struggles, right? It really seems like the organization is not that well represented by agencies in the Commonwealth. We have 1,000 agencies or so in the Commonwealth. How many are members? I think it's less than 200, if I'm not mistaken.
It is less than 200, and it really is. I talk about the business model. We talk about Medicaid. For us at Shader-Hampton, the increase in the Medicaid rates was a $146,000 increase for us. If you are an ambulance service in Pennsylvania, you have absolutely benefited many times the cost of an annual membership, $1,000. The AAP is your voice. They're your advocates. That who has to go in there and work against multi-million-dollar folks that are working with the legislature and the senators from the insurance industry to not have the status quo change. We have to change it. It has to be. So we've got to work with people. We have to make sure that people understand what the issue is and have the numbers to show them the facts.
Absolutely. And the website for AAP, it's www.aa-pa.org.
Well, thank God, because I didn't know what it was. I do,
sure.
And I go to Google.
You do.
It works,
and in your saves, right?
Right.
But the website for CC4EMS
is simply that, CC, the number 4, EMS.org.
And I think that's important for folks to understand that the purpose of that group, right, is to advocate for EMS, right? And you and other members of the organization would be glad to help with that transparency. Speak to community members, community council members, etc.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. We're doing a presentation up here, some of us, at the Allegheny League of Municipalities Conference in the beginning of April, follow up to last year. We'll come out and work with you, help to talk to your council. just have to have the education. We have the numbers, we have the background, we have the people with the history of how EMS should be, and we just want to be there to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you heard it, folks. It's important to be involved in all such organizations that are advocating for what we're aiming to accomplish and ensuring the longevity of quality EMS throughout our communities, throughout the state, throughout the country, right? So be transparent, be involved, join the AAPA.
Yeah.
You don't have to be active, but your membership dues help the organization afford to exist and to lobby on our behalf. So, Eric, I appreciate you coming today.
Awesome.
Thanks
for having me.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris. Take care.
Absolutely.